Please welcome Lyra Hill.
Hi.
One thing that I realized I forgot to say maybe before we showed that clip was that this movie is called Uzi's Party, and that scene was largely to sort of set up the different characters, the five girls.
And Uzi's name is actually inspired by Fairuza Balk.
Fairuza Balk, because of the craft. Her full name is Fairuza, but her nickname is Uzi, like the gun.
Maybe this is a bad question to start off with, but why are makeovers so important in teen movies? The makeover is such a thing in this movie. You have these five girls getting together for a sleepover and a seance, and the first thing they do after having
there's often a cross-section of witch movies and makeovers, like Witches of Eastwick. Often witchcraft is tied in with transformation, so they become more like themselves or more beautiful or something.
I think the makeover functions in teen movies as a way to give women power. Mm-hmm. It's often the ignored friend who gets a makeover in any movie, whether or not it has to do with witches.
A makeover made by other women often.
Yes.
So there's a coven element.
Yes. And then she's hot, and then she gets the guy, right? And it also just feels like something that happens in every movie, so I thought, like, I had to keep it in. It's a way to kill time, not only in a film, but as a group of young women, it's really a way to kill time. Like, I think that's a real experience a lot of us can identify with.
Eating chips and painting your nails.
Eating chips and painting your nails. It's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm. Everybody close your eyes. You don't actually have to. But I'm curious how many people noticed something about the five characters. Did you notice something strange about all five characters?
How many people realized it was one actress?
Some of you, but not all of you. Do you want to say who that actress was, Lyra?
That actress is the fantastic Johanna Hill, my younger sister. She is amazing. I love her because I have to, but also because she's great. And it was really a pleasure to work with her. She's actually a stage actress. I scouted her in high school plays. Because I had the idea for this movie about 3 years before we made it, and then I wanted to know that she could do it, so I watched her performance, and she's amazing.
Well, the element that makes this so interesting, that this is one actress, is that all the effects were done in camera.
Yeah.
And explain to us what this is, because we watch movies online.
Has anyone here worked with 16mm film before? Will you raise your hand?
Oh, cool.
4, 5, 6, 7 people. It's a magic number. Basically, that means this was all shot on 16mm film. There are no digital effects, so anytime you see JoJo acting alongside herself, that's a multiple exposure, usually double or triple or sometimes quadruple exposure, which means, in a nutshell, we'd set up the shot, I would have a matte box and I'd draw the line on the front of the matte box, which was hard, and then we'd cut a matte, so we'd block off half of the frame, film one character, close the camera, take it off the tripod, rewind the film inside of the camera, switch the matte, relight the scene. For the second half, JoJo would change costumes.
Without having seen what it looked like when you had shot it.
Without having seen what it looked like, which means we had to pre-record the soundtrack so that the dialogue would stay in sync for that take, and then re-expose the second half of the film, counting the time on the pre-recorded soundtrack, on the camera, and on the sound recording device, because we recorded sync sound on a Bolex.
I think, if anything, Lyra has proven
it was hard.
That magic is possible.
That filmmaking is magic.
Yes.
That's what I think about when I think about this movie, that movies are magic.
As a 16mm filmmaker, let me just say that because film is hard to make, people insist you must defend the fact that you're shooting on film. And my defense is that it's magic. And it's a movie about magic.
Yes.
And I think it's pretty impressive.
It's very impressive. Can you talk a little bit about your relationship with pop culture witches and witch images that are sort of pervasive, many of which have been shown and spoken of here tonight?
Many witch.
Sorry. This is a great show.
Thank you.
Right? I love this show. I am a witch.
It's true.
I'm the token witch. And so I was raised by Wiccans, by pagan eco-activists in California. And so I feel like my relationship to pop culture witches has been mostly like the reaction of Samantha in Bewitched in the first clip that we watched. This is not what I look like. This is not what I believe in. This is not what my mentors act like. I was often offended, I was often alienated, and often misunderstood as somebody involved in witchcraft. And it took me a long time to embrace the kind of ideas that Carrie, who talked about the craft, was speaking of in regards to seeing the positive in films about witches where there's an element of female empowerment then, subverted by Hollywood morals. But now I can kind of find that empowerment and those avenues through looking at the craft, that's what I mean. I named my main character after Firuza Balk. So obviously I see something powerful there.
And when you came on to talk about the craft on our podcast, you talked about how it took you a really long time to see that movie, and that there have been movies and TV shows that you've watched over the years that have been sort of more inviting and ones that have really turned you off, right? Like you said, Buffy was great.
Buffy rules. And I watched that recently too, because I avoided a lot of those things. I avoided watching The Craft. A lot of my friends watched it in junior high school, and I decided not to. Because the friends who watched it and were moved by The Craft would find me and ask me how to be a witch, because they had heard rumors about me. And I didn't like that at all. It was exposing, it was unsettling, it felt inauthentic, and I was an angry loner anyway, so I didn't want to talk to them.
That's funny because witches are often angry loners.
Yeah, it's real.
What pop culture did you like? I don't know that I asked you that before.
Don't ask me that.
Okay. We can talk about that later. One thing I do want to ask you about is the importance of the Ouija board.
Yes.
So and maybe this wasn't a reference at all, but and I didn't know this because I've actually never seen The Exorcist because I'm still too scared to watch it, but I didn't realize that Regan gets possessed with the demon through a Ouija board was
because she's toying with the devil in this seemingly harmless thing.
But Ouija boards, I read up a little bit on the history of them. They were invented in the late 1800s and wound up becoming huge around the 20s because people were really interested in spirituality as like a way to kind of think themselves out of the Depression. And so spirituality became really important. So there was this obsession with kind of contacting the beyond, and so Ouija boards sprang up in popularity. What is it about the Ouija board, and what is it about like trying to contact the spirit that was something you wanted to have in your film?
Ouija boards are really interesting because they are uncontrollable no matter who you are. Like, I think a lot of people view the Ouija boards as pathways to satanic worship, but pagans who I know are also hesitant about Ouija boards because the idea of a Ouija board is really an uncontrolled channel to the spirit world, right? And that lends itself to great imagination for young people. I had experiences at sleepover parties where we would mess with a Ouija board. All of my friends, none of whom were raised in the tradition I was, we believed deeply in the power of the Ouija board, and because we believed so deeply, we were all able to mass hallucinate and freak each other out, like freak the shit out of each other. I remember when I was 12, one of my friends started acting super weird and screaming after we were doing the Ouija board, and all of us decided she was possessed in an instant and ran downstairs. And I can't even, like, my memory has flashes of light in it. I'm sure that didn't happen, but my memory has manufactured it to be a paranormal event. I think that a lot of other people had similar experiences.
Of course.
And that really compelled me because it's uncontrollable, because I think that a lot of people, no matter where they come from or what they believe in, have had paranormal experiences, and the Ouija board is a universal conduit. So if I wanted to make a movie about spiritual young women drawing on the traditions of witchcraft in films, the Ouija board is the most accessible and appropriate catalyst for their own transformation.
And that's what's going to happen.
Yes.
That's what happens in the movie.
And it will probably show in New York sometime in spring, so you should come see it.
And to keep an eye on your project and this film specifically, they should go to lyrahill.com.
Yes, Lyra.
Yes, and we do encourage keeping up on Lyra's goings-on and seeing this film when it premieres in full. So you guys are getting a sneak peek. All right, thank you, Lyra Hill. All right, enjoy.